Hey everybody, it's me, Beth Maitland from Drama Queen Bee Quilts. Thanks for joining me for another quick tutorial. Today I'm working on free motion quilting on what I like to call Strata. I build a single cloth quilt, but it's just a panel or a section upon which I do a lot of free motion design work, and then I use that panel to make smaller projects, tote bags, journal covers or book covers, an iPad case or holder, a laptop case. I use it as the base for other projects, and it's not pieced, it's just a whole cloth quilt. So today I'm practicing using only 3 elements. I'm using pebbles, spirals, and paisleys, and I'm mixing up the scale. Some of them are small and tiny, some of them are large. I've even done a row of spirals down about a two-thirds of the way over, down one long side of my quilting panel, and I'm filling in around all of that. So as you can see, some people call it graffiti quilting, some of them call it free form free motion, or free motion fillers in negative spaces. I'm just sort of doodling with a needle and thread. And now I've completed the one long side with my little fill-in, combining, like I said, pebbles, spirals, and paisleys along this long panel of larger scaled swirls. So I'm sort of just improvising as I go, and it's really fun and it's really relaxing. It's a way for me to try out the combination of various designs on a piece of fabric to see what the texture is going to turn out like if I end up making a whole quilt this way. I'll have a really good picture of how I can fill the negative space on my larger quilt project. I take my time. A lot of things like the larger swirls seem to work better if I'm making bigger, smoother movements. But these small little filler pieces, I take my time a little bit more. I make a figure 8 when I'm making the pebbles so that I can sort of, even though there's a little thread play and I overlap my sort of drawing with the needle a little bit, I get better circles that way. And in my spirals, sometimes I echo them, sometimes I add on to them, come to a spot that has an unusual area to fill, so I add a paisley. You need a little bit of time to do this, especially the pebbling and the smaller spirals. It takes a lot more time. The paisleys and the large spirals obviously fill up a lot of the space, a lot of my quilting area much faster. But then even with the large spirals, I can't stand it. I had to go back in, and I did in some of the swirls. I followed each sort of alleyway made from the swirling pattern, and I filled that up with rows of spirals and sometimes rows of pebbles. It makes the quilting more dense, but in that larger area, I kind of want it to match the smaller filled in areas in terms of the quilting content, the amount of puckering and shrinkage that I'm going to get when I launder this before I construct my smaller items is going to really fluff this up and make it a delicious and vintage looking puckered quilting surface, and we'll see lots and lots of texture. Now this is a very pale aqua piece of fabric. It looks more toward white. It's not. So I used a little bit darker thread, not a blending thread. That was when you need to blend with a thread, you use the same color thread as your fabric or slightly lighter. That seems to blend a bit more, and then you're just left with the texture of the quilting. But if you want the quilting to really pop, traditionally you pick a darker color, or if it's a dark fabric, a dramatically lighter color to make contrast instead of blend. Now here you can see I'm finishing my little row of miniature spirals within the larger freeform spirals that run down the length of the fabric. I also am going to go over to a couple of the other spirals and do little alleyways of pebbles. When you're doing this kind of fill of a larger spiral design, I want to always be careful to have an empty spiral row next to my filler. so that that way it sort of highlights the extra work that I did, because like I said, it takes a lot of extra time to do the really, really tiny micro stippling and the little bitty filler. And now I'm just adding some more paisleys into this blank space, and I'll continue to quilt out the rest of this little section, and then my little strata will be done. I don't know about you, but I really benefit in terms of learning. I'm not necessarily a visual learner. I can learn from reading books or looking at pictures or listening to a lecture, but for some reason it really reinforces the way the activity has to be performed if I get to watch somebody do it. So I thought maybe today a little video of just some of the technique I use, how fast or slow I go, what kind of materials you can see me use. I thought that might be helpful for new students with trying free motion quilting on their domestic machine, or working for the first time, or early use of a long arm. My background is that I started on a domestic machine with an extra expanded quilting table on my regular little cloth, and I knew I needed more, so I grew to a mid-arm machine, and that was not adequate either. Not only was the equipment a little frustrating and hard to use, but also the space was very limiting. And when I decided I really, really wanted to quilt, I ended up with this beautiful long arm, and it has a tremendous amount of throat space, a lot of I don't have to advance the quilt as often as I did on either of my other machines. It's easy to use and glides smoothly and beautifully, and it makes my stitching with needle and thread on fabric absolutely a satisfying experience. I hope you've enjoyed watching me do a little bit of dabbling in free motion quilting and watch me sketch with a needle and thread, and I hope it gives you some ideas for projects of your own. Thank you for joining me. I'm Beth Maitland with Drama Queen Bee Quilts. I'll see you again soon.